The American Civil War would come to Staunton, Virginia's doorstep in 1861. Because of the Virginia Central Railroad and its connection to Richmond, the town would become a center of commerce and a mobilization base and a training area for Confederate troops. The town would produce uniforms, shoes, army supplies. Staunton was vital to the state of Virginia and the Confederacy, located in the heart of the Shenandoah Valley. Staunton would also be a primary objective of the Union Army during the war. The American Hotel would be converted into a hospital in 1862 and serve in that capacity until the end of the war in 1865. Thus, the stage is set. Staunton was a hotbed of activity during the war, and much was a result of the Virginia Central Railroad, which was a mere 20 yards from the American Hotel. The Civil War remains the bloodiest conflict in American history. Over the course of the Civil War, at least 600,000 soldiers died from wounds or sickness. The vast majority of these men were treated in hospitals scattered throughout both sections of the country, North and South. The majority of wounds documented during the Civil War were caused by the Minié ball, while the rest were from grape shot, canister, or other exploding shells. Few men were treated for saber and bayonet wounds, and even fewer for cannonball wounds. Over 2/3 of the shot injuries were to the arm or leg. Minié balls splintered bones, damaged muscle, and drove dirt, clothing, and other debris into the wounds. As a result of the immense damage inflicted by Minié balls, amputations were common during the Civil War. The likelihood of surviving an amputation depended on the distance of the operation site from the trunk of the body, in addition to how long after the injury the surgery was performed. In many cases, the only way to try to save a wounded soldier's life was to amputate a shattered limb. The amputation process took approximately 2 to 10 minutes. William Dorsey Pender was a brigade and divisional commander in the Army of Northern Virginia. Lee rated him as one of the most promising of his commanders, promoting him to Major General at the age of 29. At Gettysburg, Pender was wounded in the thigh by a shell fragment fired from Cemetery Hill. He was brought to Staunton, treated for the wound, but eventually soon after, the leg was amputated. Pender died a few hours later. John Bell Hood was a brigade and division commander in the Army of Northern Virginia during the Battle of Gettysburg. He received a severe wound to the left arm during fighting around Devil's Den and Little Round Top. Avoiding amputation, his arm was treated on the battlefield. Hood would arrive in Staunton on July the 13th, 1863, and spend 2 weeks recovering before taking the Virginia Central Railroad to Richmond. Hood would continue to fight throughout the war. David Hunter was a Union commander of the Army of the Shenandoah, occupied Staunton June the 6th through the 10th, 1864. Hunter would have his army destroy areas of the town by setting fire to warehouses, mills, factories, workshops, stores, houses, and the railroad depot. Some Union troops also looted food and other valuables during their occupation. Incredibly, he would spare the American Hotel on the advice of Union Colonel David Strother, whom had acquired a friendship with the owner of the hotel at that time. Hunter burned everything else. Ulysses S. Grant. In 1874, the first year of his presidency, Ulysses S. Grant took a brief vacation trip to White Sulphur Springs, stopping overnight in Staunton at the American Hotel. When the news of his arrival spread, a music band that had previously served as Stonewall Jackson's headquarters band assembled at the station opposite the hotel room and serenaded Grant with the song Dixie and My Country 'Tis of Thee. Grant came out on the hotel balcony and acknowledged the band by raising his hat. Grant is reported to have bowed repeatedly to the band. The incident was one of the first public acts of reconciliation after the American Civil War. The band actually played later at his funeral. Three months after President Grant's visit, Confederate General Pierre-Gustave Toutant-Beauregard stopped at the American Hotel for a night. The Stonewall Brigade Band's serenading of him was so poignant that the former general is reported to have indulged in emotional reminiscences, reminding the listeners that he had met the band at First Manassas while fighting for a glorious cause.
The history of the American Hotel actually dates back to 1855 when it was constructed. It was constructed as part of the Virginia Central Railroad, which was established here in town in 1854. Of course, the hotel's primary function was it served as a Civil War hospital from 1862 until 1865. The hotel did serve as one of the finer hotels all the way up till early 1862 when it was converted over to receiving hospital here in Staunton, Virginia. Staunton, being here in the center of the Shenandoah Valley, was a Confederate stronghold. And we had a lot of things that occurred here in town due to the Virginia Central Railroad. Troops constantly transported here, immobilized, trained. We had dead and wounded come through here, prisoners of war. We made uniforms here, shoes. Now, this was a receiving hospital. It did not serve in capacity of a general hospital. The general hospital here in town was Virginia School for Deaf and Blind, which is just over on the other side of town. It housed up to 10,000 soldiers at a time. And after peak battles such as Antietam and Gettysburg, it was pretty much maxed out. I think after the Battle of Gettysburg, there were close to, if not a little bit over 9,000 soldiers there at one time. With this being a receiving hospital, it's much smaller in capacity. You might have 200, 250 soldiers here. I would probably suspect many of those were ill, some had disease, sick. You probably had some wounded here. There might have been some surgeries, but they would have been very minor, I think, for the most part. Maybe an amputation or two. I think it would depend on each situation. So actually the death rate was pretty low at these hospitals here in town. This hospital here, Virginia School for the Deaf and Blind, and some of the makeshift hospitals in town. Particularly if you were a soldier and you were wounded or sick or whatnot, you had a much better chance of surviving if you ended up at a general hospital. They were better equipped, there were more doctors, better equipment, and you had a stronger chance to survive. So as you can tell, there was a lot of activity in and around this hotel, particularly during the American Civil War. Like I said, used as a hospital, you had a constant flow of soldiers in and out, sick, wounded, treated here, some died here, and it was a hotbed of activity. So much emotion that revolved around the Virginia Central Railroad, which is just right across from the hotel here. We've been very fortunate to do ghost tours here at the American Hotel for 3 seasons now. We've had incredible success, very large groups we've been able to bring inside the hotel and explain some of the history here, particularly when this place served as a Civil War hospital. We've been able to go in detail about soldiers, how they were treated for sickness, disease, wounds. We've went into talk about amputations and some of the instruments and equipment that were used to perform such. Well, we believe there are several individuals that haunt the American Hotel. We do believe there are slaves that haunt the hotel, as well as Civil War soldiers, both Union and Confederate, as well as a gentleman named Stump, who used to be a telegraph operator here, and last, an individual named Henderson Coe.
Hi, I'm Becky, and I am part of Black Ribbon Paranormal and the Ghost of Staunton tour group. I've spent many hours in the American Hotel as an investigator and as a tour guide. As an investigator and a tour guide, do a lot of research on the people who may have impacted or have an impact on a location. One of those people is Henderson Coe. We learned that in 1868, on Christmas Eve to be exact, this gentleman was being escorted by his brother and his friend. They spent the night here with the understanding that the next day he was going to be admitted to the Western State Lunatic Asylum. He had other plans. He walked out on the roof of the 4th-story window and jumped to his death. The death notice indicated that he was not only naked, but the coroner pointed out that it looked like he had no bruise or broken bone in his body. He is one of the people that we bring up during our investigation with the hope that we may get to communicate with him. We heard children a couple times on some of our investigations. We are not sure who these children are, but we suspect they are either children of the store owners or possibly children of the medical staff here. We find it very interesting that they have been hanging around in the basement more so, which makes us wonder if they were with the medical staff.
Hey, who's up here with us? Say your name really, really loud. Did your master bring you here? Sandy, that's what Mom was saying. That was faster.
Are you in any pain? Well, we'd like to say goodnight.
Somebody had asked the question, "Are you lost?" And you hear like a southern draw, like a what, which come across pretty clear.
During our interview with Marty, it felt like someone was trying to remove my face mask, and as he continued his story, an unexplained noise came from a corner across the basement.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, you heard that?
I heard it too. I don't know what that was.